Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me on a new episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week on the Music Reviewer podcast. This episode is going to be the Best and Worst Track of the Week for the episode of, or for the week of March 27th. This is just a weekly series I do if you're new to the Music Reviewer podcast, where I take each new entry into the Billboard Hot 100, give each track a letter grade, and take one that's the worst and take one that's the best. That's all it is. And also, occasionally, if you want to listen to some more episodes of this podcast, I mainly do album review. And occasionally those album reviews are of older albums I really dig, but most of the time they're just of modern albums that have recently come out. But anyways, pretty light week overall. A bit of a filler week because there's some chatter of a pending album bomb next week from Justin Bieber's latest album, so we'll see. But anyways, right now we're just concentrating on what's on this episode. Overall, I thought it was a decent batch of songs, a lot of different genres represented, some country from Miranda, Lambert, some hip-hop slash alt stuff from Machine Gun Kelly and Corpse. Imagine Dragons, unfortunately, NF again on this episode. He was on, I think last week or a couple weeks ago, a K-pop artist by the name of Rose, and some Rod Wave. So not a bad lineup of artists. If any of those artists strike your interest, go ahead and stick around. I'll be covering some of their tracks. But before we get started, I just want to let everyone know there is a new episode of the album review series I just recorded not too long ago. So, the latest Kings of Leon album. So if you're interested in that band at all, check out the album, their latest album. But also check out the review I did. But also check out that album titled When You See Yourself by the artist Mass Wolf. His that track is up to 25 this week, so that kind of rose up a bit quickly. There's some speculation that might get pretty high too. We'll see how it goes, but 25 this week for that. Also found it interesting, why is Dynamite up to 34 by BTS? I think this might be the Grammy week that influenced some stuff, but that track's been lingering, and it's been going really low, and then it's been going up. I just don't really know what to do with this track anymore. Whoopty by CJ finally fell to 45. That's always good to see, because I think CJ, or that track by CJ, was terribly mediocre. Heat Waves by Glass Animals up to 56. Another week at Rose. Only one spot this week, but I don't know. It might be slowing down. It might, be up to the 40s next week. Who knows? Holy by Justin Bieber and Chance the Rapper, thank God, finally dropped out. That track was awful. I don't ever want to hear it or mention it again. And then Golden by Harry Styles dropped out as well. A pretty decent hit for the talented former One Direction star. Thought that was a pretty good track. I never got to really review it, because it wasn't, the show didn't exist when he dropped that album. But anyways, not a bad track by Harry Styles, sorry. I thought that was one of the more, more progressive songs on that album. But anyways, also I forgot to mention last week, for whatever it's worth, some tracks that dropped out, and actually some pretty interesting ones. First, Bang by AJR dropped out. I don't know how long that's going to last, because they just released that album. But don't know what was up with that. It fell and dropped out pretty in a pretty big jump. It was sitting in the top half, I think, at least of the chart. Anyways, also Hole in the Bottle by Kelsey Ballerina finally dropped out. Laugh Now Cry Later by Drake and Lil Durk finally dropped out. Lonely by Justin Bieber and Benny Blanco. Lemonade by Internet Money, Gunna, Don Toliver. That's out as well. Hope by Gabby Barrett, out as well. That one. Bichota by Karol G. I kind of saw that one going out too, but that one, a lot of dropouts last week. That looks like the main ones, but let's go ahead and get into the main gist of the episode, starting with Settling Down by Miranda Lambert at 90. This was an okay track. Honestly, this could have gotten best track of the week had there not been another track that came in. I like the peppy nature of the chorus on this track. Sounds a bit more adult alternative / pop, a little less country, especially for Miranda Lambert style. And although she does have a bit of her signature twang on here, it becomes more prominent as the song progresses. Just not really too sure what to make of this. The track has some nice, clear, organic instrumentation. But Miranda kind of sounds static for most of the track. Usually she brings a little bit more grit or energy to tracks. For instance, that last track that made it on here with El King. But this isn't bad. Overall, I dig the aesthetic and the direction. I just wish she executed a bit better. I gave it a B. Next track was interesting. Daywalker by Machine Gun Kelly and Corpse. I vaguely know who Corpse is. He's somewhat of a newer generational artist with rising from some TikTok fame. Mainly because of how distinct his vocal tone is. I still don't really know what he is. Is he a rapper? Is he this new underground, new age artist that really just does whatever they want? Probably the latter. Anyways, MGK shows up in his rap, traditional rap, I guess, form here. I don't know. I feel like the instrumental on this track was pretty disappointing. It's very squeezed out, and there's like this squeezed, eerie synth sample that is just annoyingly played all throughout. It's fine at first, but it's a bit overutilized. It makes the track quite static. The track's overall nature is fine. It's very dark and moody. It could have just been developed much better. And I honestly, none of the performances by MGK, of course, were that memorable either. Honestly, it's weird hearing Machine Gun Kelly rap in general these days, so I gave it a C+. Next track was by NF and Hobson, Lost, coming in at 79. And damn, NF really went hard on this. There's some nice consciousness on here, the flow, the delivery. I made a joke earlier. It sounds a lot like Eminem. I don't know really why you would listen to NF if Eminem exists, but NF is a thing. There's a decent beat switch that happens throughout the track that seems cool. The synth pizzicato strings are a bit uninspired. They're kind of just thrown on to do stuff. And Hobson doesn't really do the track any favors, honestly. I don't really fuck with Hobson either. I don't know, but maybe in terms of how he raps and his style, the quirky, abrasive style, it honestly doesn't really show up here, which I don't know why. I am used to Hobson doing other things, but he kind of just is there. He doesn't really do the track any favors. I didn't hate this track. I give it a C. Next track was On the Ground by Rose, number 70. Rose or Rose, I think there's an accent somewhere, is a K-pop artist from the famous girl group Blackpink. This track really confused the hell out of me. It sounds like pristine, bubbly 2000s pop. It seriously sounds like maybe like a B-side of a Michelle Branch song or something of that nature, with the exception of the oddly used beat drop that happens with the buzzy synths. It's a bit awkward and I guess formatted, a bit clunky. But the track is just odd. It sounds dated, like it belongs in an entirely different era. I can't really even give this like the quirky hyper pop pass that, that's kind of happening right now, where a lot of old pop norms are coming back, or everything can be so bright and bubbly with the past that it's just hyper pop. Stuff from artists obviously like Charlie XCX or like 100 Gex. This isn't even on that level of creativity or quirkiness. This is just kind of bland and regurgitated. So unfortunately, I did not like that track. I give it a D. And kind of a short list this week. That's the main entries. Basically, we'll go to the part of the episode where I give the best and worst track of the week. We always start on the worst track of the week, so we end on a positive note. And if you heard me mention Imagine Dragons, the worst track of the week is Follow You. Now, I will say Imagine Dragons, they've gotten a lot of hate. They've kind of fallen down like the Nickelback path, where I can swear when they first came out, a lot of people were hyping them up. A lot of people were shamelessly throwing on Radioactive and acting like they were, they're pretty cool for listening to Imagine Dragons. I remember those people. I kind of fell into that category at some point, but after a certain point, I just couldn't fuck with it anymore. And I think they've become essentially what they were not expected to be by certain people that listen to them, because they're kind of going down this, Maroon 5, Chainsmoker type of deal where they're just making shit that was going to be played on the radio, and this track is no exception. Why does this sound oddly familiar to Coldplay's Paradise as well? Like the synthy chord progression that opens up the track. I looked it up. It's not the same, but a lot of the chords are similar from that track to this track. It's just maybe flipped around. Not a carbon copy, but the progression is flipped around in a sense. But whatever. I see they gave up on being a rock band too, because this honestly just sounds like, I mentioned it before, it kind of sounds like the solo or the singer, the front man of this act is kind of becoming like an Adam Levine type, where he has a very distinct signature singing style, and that's kind of what's holding the band together. There's also a terrible melodic interlude with some terrible vocal manipulations that sounds pretty disgusting. And to top it off, the track is pretty sanitary and flat. Not surprised at all. So yeah, the worst track of the week goes to Follow You by Imagine Dragons. Best track of the week is from Rod Wave with Street Runner. Honestly, this kind of won by default. Like, the only other track that maybe held up was that Miranda Lambert track. And this track just has the typical Rod Wave style and aesthetic, the charm. It has the pretty vocal stylizations, the soft color in his voice, the melodic piano instrumentation that's present, but also gets a nice light touch. It kind of just floats all throughout the track. It's a bit anticlimactic, but it's not bad. It's really not like a fully developed track either. It's kind of maybe just has like one or two sections that Rod Wave does, and we kind of just get left off on this elongated voicemail message that's a little bit too dragged out. It could have been cut off at a certain point, but it kind of reminds me of one of the earlier tracks I really dug from him on this podcast, where I covered a Letter from Houston. That kind of charm and that kind of, emotional character, I guess. Same thing on this track. So it's just what Rod Wave does well. I'm kind of a sucker for it or whatever. But yeah, best track of the week goes to Rod Wave with this track. Nicely done. And if you stayed with me to the end of this episode, thanks for listening this week. My name is Josh. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you dug what you heard, if not, leave some feedback, good or bad. Or just don't do anything. That's cool too. Also subscribe on your typical listening service that you're on, if you're digging the pod. But anyways, yeah, thanks for tuning in this week. We'll see what happens next week, but see you later.